In this video, we're going to talk about home cinema hush boxes. Some of the things that I did to make mine. I've made a couple of versions. I'm going to talk about some of the things that went well and also some of the reasons why it didn't deliver the performance I wanted and why in the end I have not used it. In my cinema, I've got 2 rows of 3 seats each. Here you got the back row with the Sony 4K projector mounted off the ceiling. It's centralized right to the screen and it is located just at the top of the screen so that it shoots at the right angle. I had to contend also just with the star ceiling that I made so that it has clearance from where that's coming, but also that there's a mount holding it in the central position. You can just see through there. So this is a Sony projector. The hush box I made originally was made too heavy. So the reason I didn't continue with that one was the weight was quite significant. And I also didn't have the sheer amount of reduction of the noise level to think that I'd done a good enough job with it. The overall design of the hush box is that there's really a lid to the hush box which is mounted through and up into the ceiling joists. And that's what we're looking at here. That long wide piece is essentially the lid or as a rim that runs the whole way around. So I made that and then I made the hush box which clips onto that lid, and all of that is screwed directly up into the ceiling. So it can take a lot of weight, but the reason why I've had challenges with it is because the sound level in the room after installing the hush box didn't drop more than a couple of decibels. It dropped a little bit, but not enough that it is quite a bulky thing in the room and it was quite noticeable. So really, like aesthetically wise, it wasn't hidden in any way, and it also didn't deliver massively great performance. So in the area up here, I've got some acoustic tiles. Again, just trying to offer a little bit of dampening. And the way that the bottom section, which I'll show you in a minute, attaches is there's clips up into here and there, and on the sides there's 2 other clip locations, and those clips have latches on the main part of the, so you can clip the hush box in place. It holds the weight. You can take the hush box off in the future if you ever need to do adjustments to the projector, change the bulb, change any sort of cabling, so you can still get to the projector quite easily. But at the same time, it held it very securely in place. And around the section which is in black, up along here, originally I had a acoustic rated door seal around there. So when the top and the bottom came together, there was another seal in there which would stop any sound leakage. When looking at the hush box design, you have to do it based on the projector you've got and where the location of the intake and outtake air vents are. So on my projector, the major intake is here. The major outtake is this side. There's also air intake around the lens. And there's also another intake section at the very back and up the top. So keeping all that in mind, the design of the hush box needs to try to push air to those locations where it can do it effectively and get air quickly out from here out to the outside. So here is version 1 of the hush box, which has now been repurposed in kids' bedroom as a bit of a toy box. At least it found another home. What happened with this one was I made it so that it was literally sound impenetrable. The whole thing's made out of plywood. It's got a 12mm base and wall. It has got the side vent cut out here for the electronics. It's got the front piece here, which I will show you on the second version. That's where the glass allowing the lens to come through is. On the other side here are the 2 intake valves here, and around on the other side there'll be 1 outtake on this side. The whole thing has been covered in a very dark charcoal fabric, which was the same material that I used on my star ceiling, so I had a lot of that left over. On the inside it's still painted black, so the base of it's still black, but if I look down to the base, there's a section on the very bottom which has just got some pine timber just to tie the whole frame together. So this version, really, the main issue with it was just too heavy. Design-wise, it was okay in terms of allowed the projector to fit nicely. It clipped up into the top, but it was extraordinarily heavy, and I had some concerns about leaving that in the room. So now we have version 2 of the Hushbox. The aim here was to significantly improve the design and to significantly decrease the weight. The only way I could accomplish this was to now have these sections where the fan was mounted essentially on the outside, popping out from the Hushbox. And that was the only way to keep the size down for the projector to fit in and to try to have enough of a channel to get the air to the right locations for the projector in and outtakes. The whole thing is made out of plywood, but this time I changed the design where I made the frame of it. So I've got like a 30 by 30 mil pine frame on the top, and you can't see it, but it's on the bottom as well. So 2 frames that are matching. And then what I've done is I've attached the plywood to those, but the structure is now not the plywood sides. The structure is that top and bottom frame, and it's really the whole thing has got a 30 by 30 mil pine carcass that's holding it together. The section where the window was going to be for the projector lens, and because I'd made it and I was very happy with it for the first version of the Hushbox, I cut it out of the first one and I then built the second one around using that same frame. I've used some glass that is purpose made for this type of application. It was from Edmunds Optics, and it's also slanted on a small angle, and you can kind of see from the top view how that angle works. Now that's so that you don't get light reflection from your projector back into the projector lens. So I followed some of the best advice that I could find in terms of what angle that was, and then I made that little frame so that I've got the angle inbuilt into the frame, and the glass really just sits within, sandwiched between a front and back piece, holding it at that angle. So that was quite important because you need to get the glass mounted in the right way at the right angle, and using highly specific glass for that sort of purpose, so that it lets the maximum amount of light through. So let's talk about now the venting situation. So you saw on the Sony projector, I needed an intake here, and I needed an intake on this side, and then my exhaust is coming out to suck air out from here. Now what I've used are some fans. It's AC Infinity fans. I've got a unit that I mounted the control on the side here. And this is it would be set automatically. So as soon as the Hushbox detects the temperature is above a certain level, it would turn the fans on. Below a certain level, turn them off. So the electronics basically was set to be automated. You'd never have to touch it. You could always get to the panel here quite easily, and that's why I mounted it on the outside. And I also mounted the little controller for the speed settings so you could get to it from the outside if you ever needed to, especially if you're putting it onto manual mode for some reason. I wanted these sections to stick out the least amount that they could because aesthetically in the room it wasn't my favorite design, but it was the only way that I could try to get the air separated from where the fan is and where the air is being sucked in from. So I wanted to create a little bit of space distant from the fan and where the fan noise was going to be. It wasn't sitting on the outside of the box. So I'm trying to acoustically separate the fan from where the noise from that fan ultimately is going to come out from is here. That was pretty challenging. This design, obviously, it's not worked as well as I wanted to. There might be another version which could improve that. I'm looking at the cabling on the inside here. I've got the control panel that sits down there, cabling that runs to each of the fan motors. There's cabling running along the bottom here over to this fan, and then on the inside what would then sit up really just above the projector is the temperature sensor, and I had that so that it was hooked up along the top lid, just dangling down above the projector. And then I've fully encased the whole thing with more acoustic foam, again trying to just take any noise out as much as possible. Now, knowing that the air intake on the side, remember from the projector, was actually back at the top. I needed to get the air intake here back to the area where it was going to feed the projector fan. The reason I've done that is because I couldn't move this side piece any further back because it was hitting back into the wall and some more acoustic paneling. So that was more just a limitation of my room, that I couldn't position this directly back here in line where it needed to go. That was quite problematic because then I had to have the section here with the vent to try to get quickly from there to there in a tight turn, so the air would move through here and come out right above where the intake of the projector is. So definitely a limitation to my room. I've got a bracket here that I made up to just support where that is. Now looking at the clips, what holds it to the top of the whole structure. So we'll just literally clip on to the top brackets, pull down, and 2 of those on each side. It held it in place perfectly. I did, for safety measure, put another clip on the bottom here, and I had a chain from here running up to a spot just on the very top, so that if for whatever reason, if this ever fell or broke away from the top, there'll be a safety mechanism so that this would not fall down to below. And there's the back, same thing, 2 clips up to the top. Whole thing's painted in a matte black paint so that in the room it would just be basically as dull as possible and not have any sort of light reflection. On the air intake and exhaust, I've got the grills from the outside. Inside here, I've also got more of the acoustic foam, again trying to insulate that space inside there so that sound wouldn't be coming through as much as possible. So again, the 2 front ones, you can almost see it a little bit from that angle, and there you can sort of see through to the fan on the back. So we're trying to dampen the noise getting out, but that really is the major problem here. The fan noise from the projector really was only a couple of decibel louder than the fan noise coming through from the AC infinity units out through here. So we've just traded one type of noise for another type of noise, but also introduced a whole physical structure into the room. And really, to me, I just found the trade-off of that just wasn't worth it. The design of this meant the light and the image shouldn't be affected by proper mounting of a case. There shouldn't be sound coming through from here, because again, that's all acoustically sealed within there. So that's my hush box. It's custom made to the Sony projector. Hush box design is a highly challenging thing. I recommend you try it within your room if you've got significant noise problems from your projector and you've got a way to build this into your bulkhead at the back, or another sealed enclosure where you can especially take the air intake and outtakes and move them as far away from where the listening positions are. So mine here were literally 1 meter and a bit above where the back row listening positions are, and that's just too close. If your projector's set back higher on your ceiling or further back on your back wall, it might have been a better end result, but for this one it didn't overcome the problem of really exchanging projector noise for hush box fan noise. It's a sealed enclosure, but your weakness is really just that you do have a fan emitting noise, and that is not something you can overcome. I'll be doing some more home cinema builds videos. Keep a lookout, subscribe for this, and drop a like. Thanks for watching, everyone.